Hey, John, I'm really happy that you could join my Zoom meeting today. Um, it's kind of exciting for me because this is my first attempt at doing a podcast. So if I mess things up, I really apologize. We're just going to do this right through. But I really wanted to have you on. I want to thank you for coming on. And I want to just set the table for whoever's going to be watching this video. The first thing is you kind of triggered something in me to do the podcast, which is why you're my first guest. And I saw a post that you did about Microsoft integrating MCP. And the thing that I'm a follower, I'm an avid follower of you, and I know how hot this MCP technology is to you, what it means to you. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. I reflected on my past experiences working with GNS3. That was a small startup that got acquired by SolarWinds, and I was really excited about an integration thing that I did. Then someone bigger jumped on it and then just like took it over. Right. So I want to state for the record, I was watching John this entire time and he was talking about MCP. So I wanted to give you this platform to talk about that. The second thing is I actually represent a very small group of students, veterans, people who are transitioning out of whatever age, let they hear about AI or the tech is just blowing up and it's exciting. There's all these new different frontiers and they're not going to know what to do. So you are actually helping my group of small, cluster of students, even myself, on what's hot, like what's going on. How would you hit this if you're brand new? So though, because I kind of see you as this model guy, I think you're the future. I honestly, I believe in you so much. I think you and the way you integrate stuff and you push stuff out there, you contribute every day. And we'll get into LinkedIn a little bit here where some people really contribute. And then others are just like self-promoting, right? And just scrolling. What's John doing? And I just go there, right? So anyway, without further ado, thank you so much. How are you doing?
Matt, wow, that was probably one of the better intros I've ever had. I'm doing fantastic. I literally just came out of a demo with one of the world's largest ISPs, probably the largest provider of fiber in the world, and they wanted to talk to me about MCP and A2A, oddly enough, right?
I'm telling you.
So
Yeah.
I just came out of that meeting and I'm feeling great. I'm feeling excited. And everything you've said, wow, thank you so much. And kudos to you for starting a podcast and for adding your voice to the ring. It's an incredible voice to be out there and to be in this public. And like you said, you also lead students and veterans and people starting. Matt, like I don't know, I feel like we're around the same age, probably a couple Gen Xers talking here, but
I
I feel like this period of time, it almost is a mirror of the late 90s with the boom of, let's say, Windows 95 and the advent of not just the internet, the World Wide Web,
yeah.
uh, HTTP as a protocol, SMTP, and email takes over, right? You and I were on that digital to analog threshold generation, but today it's a purely digital generation. And I think that people, your students and your veterans and people transitioning, they'll probably have the same level of excitement that you and I had. I didn't really know what the internet was. It was an abstract thing that my generation was told would be the future. The future
Yeah.
is the internet, the future is computers. I think that mirrors today with the future is AI, and artificial intelligence is definitely the way to go in terms of career and opportunity and, let's be frank, money and stability, right? So I think those students are really, and it's funny, it comes back to what? To protocols. That's why I'm so excited lately, is because there is actual protocols that can help us with standards and governing approaches. And, like, here's how to do it. Here's the
Yeah.
framework. And now you go build that thing. And what's neat is now that there's a protocol, Matt, you can build the thing. John, you can build the thing, and those two things can talk to each other and communicate. Agents can actually work together now because there's protocols, right?
Yeah.
Like if we think of OSPF, right? Cisco, Juniper, Arista, Nortel, all these companies came together. Now, yes, there's EIGRP and Cisco tried to do their own thing, but look where that ended up, right? The
I'm kind of
one that
chuckling. I'm chuckling a little bit because, based on my networking experience and what I'm doing and how often I deploy EIGRP, right? I kind of get that. But before you get into that, before you get into all the protocols, because I know you're going to launch into that, I want everyone to understand a little bit about you, John. Like,
sure.
I know a little bit about you based on your bio and your background, but can you just kind of let the students know, how did you get full on into the AI? Like, I'm going to call it a revolution. Like, where were you before that? Can you give us a little background on you?
Sure. So I spent 20 years, 20 to 25 years doing IT, infrastructure technology. I actually started so to go even further back, I graduated as a computer programmer.
Okay.
Now, I think that alone kind of, I look things through a programmer lens,
Mm.
even though I was a network engineer for 20 years. I graduated as a programmer, but I ended up doing network engineering and getting certifications, a lot of certifications. I was a senior network engineer at an insurance company for about 7 years. And then I had an opportunity to become one of the senior network architects for the Parliament of Canada, the
Mhm.
House of Commons. So I spent 9 years there. Um, at In 2014, I started my journey into network automation. And that is a key because that is what led me to Python and more programming and
Mhm.
solving problems programmatically as opposed to manually and with a command line interface, actually automating things.
Yeah.
And that automation is what led me to artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence, at least in the sphere of networking, it really is an extension of automation.
Okay,
Um,
let me pause you there because I totally agree with that. In 2014, for me, I had a breakout year where I was hired by a startup for GNS3, and we were virtualizing everything. And our rivals were Cisco, which we can get into what you're doing with Cisco. But my whole approach was sandboxing. I wanted, before I got into AI, I wanted to understand the fundamentals, the nuts and bolts, right? So my point to you is, you were having this breakout thing with AI. I was having a breakout with the startup of GNS3 in 2014, and I knew I could sandbox and emulate real networks in my laptop. This was a huge breakthrough for
yes.
training, for hacking, for pen testing, for defending. Anything that I did, I kind of saw myself as the Fred Rogers, the Mr. You know what I'm talking about? You know who Fred Rogers is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my point. We both had some breakout moments in our career that just really kind of catapulted us. And I want to freeze this moment just because students think, oh, I got to come in, I got to do this stuff, and I got to jump through all these hoops, and then I'm going to make the money. No, you got to go where you feel, right? So
Yeah.
feel free, go ahead. Okay, now go ahead and let's hear how you kept going.
Well, so ChatGPT comes out, and I was signed up in the first 3 days. I was one of those first million users.
Same
Immediately,
here.
I could not wait for it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But you know what the real breakthrough moment was? When they released the API. When they released the REST API, and I could programmatically, and it's one thing to chat with it in a GUI. I'm not trying to diminish that. That is like penicillin or the wheel or fire or the Wright brothers and flight. I think that GUI chatting with AI is an inflection point in human history. But shortly after that, you could start to program with it. And my mind went, well, I have this tool called Cisco PyETS that I can get JSON back from a Cisco device.
Yeah.
What if I sent that data to the AI? That was my experiment. What if
I,
I
I
get
love it.
data from a router and
Yeah.
send it to the AI and say, what can you tell me about this data?
Yeah.
And light bulbs exploded in my mind when it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I said logs. Logs is a great example. Have you ever been in the data center at 4 a.m. trying to find the error in a syslog? Right?
I've got stories like that, but I actually, before I got into this part, I was a big Splunk champion because of how it just goes over. And so this is not an endorsement for Splunk. I'm just saying there was an aha moment where I used Splunk in a data center in a large telco. We're talking billions of data points, just a kind of a precursor to AI, right?
Right.
But to
Right.
get back to what you were saying, I found your article. You posted something where you were on Cisco DevNet. It was like Snack Minutes, and you were talking about Marvel Entertainment and doing APIs to just get people started with program. That's the love you have, I think, with people. And I'm sitting there going, you know what? That's kind of fun. And then you were talking about the Watchers, and I connected with you on because I was fascinated with Watchers. You know, Marvel borrows from a lot of material all over the planet, puts it in one comic book, and you just see what happens, right? Well, Watchers are we're kind of doing that too. We're Gen Xers. We're in our 50s. We've seen some stuff. And
Yeah, yeah,
we know we have not seen the last of it yet. This is just the beginning, right? So we
yeah,
need to have this podcast. We need to talk about this stuff, right? But I was
yeah.
so impressed with you and Cisco DevNet taking that on. I kind of feel like, but that's how I connected with you just emotionally. I think you're an
Oh, I appreciate
amazing
that.
guy. Yeah.
I have almost a naivety about myself where I go, you know what? If I show people how to use Marvel Comics REST API, everyone's going to start programming.
Love
I
it.
don't know. You know what I mean? But if I broke through to yourself and to others, I did get some great feedback from the Marvel thing. Um, like I think that there's learning can be fun. Let me put it that way. I think that learning, the act of learning, does not have to be tedious in any way.
Yeah.
So find a passion. If you're into comic books, I know a lot of people are into space. NASA has free APIs. You can get the weather on Mars programmatically. Find something like that. Pokemon has APIs.
Mhm.
Every major sports event has APIs. I don't think that you need to start with abstract, adding two numbers in Python, or I
Agreed.
don't know. I don't know. I think we can enjoy the act of learning. So what better than saying, what comic book did Venom first appear in natural language, and do a REST API call and get, Amazing Spider-Man 300 or whatever, right?
Right, right. No, but what I love about what you're doing there, and just touching, that's the reason why I wanted to go on that. You hit right on the fun part. I philosophically believe we need to put away this stuffy office busyness type of thing where you just gotta kind of have to like, you're carrying your briefcase in that business. We don't live in that space anymore. Like 20, 30 years ago, I had my first programming language was in high school, and it was Pascal.
Right, right.
That sucked. And then later, I had to look at somebody else's Perl code. I'm like, oh, no, now I don't want to offend people on Perl. They are super efficient programmers, and I have mad respect for them. They're programming ninjas. But I just never
Right,
had the mindset of programming. I just analyze the crud out of stuff. And if I don't believe you, I'm going to put it in a sandbox, right?
right,
I'm going
right.
to get that knowledge one way or another. I'm going to find out, right? And you're kind
Yeah.
of doing that, but in your own trajectory. So now we're kind of moving into this. I'm watching a flurry of great stuff that you're putting out on LinkedIn. Like I don't even know how LinkedIn makes its money, honestly, because you are just cranking out this great stuff. I'm going to be honest with you. I could not keep up. Like I need to sit down and have a conversation with you, which is what this is. And I started to understand what MCP is, and I understand how you were getting excited about. But why is this an inflection point with MCP? What? So this is kind of we're getting to it. Like, why would MCP be that galvanizing, touchstone? What did you like about it? Why are you so excited about that?
Well, I think we all strive to make things as convenient as possible to the consumer or the end user or the target of our product. Technology has always been moving to rotary phones, right?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember dialing the 9 in a rotary phone, right?
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
they're touch buttons, right? And all these things are about human convenience and lack of friction, right? So let's just talk about the Marvel thing. You need an API key. You need to know how to make the body of a post. You
Mhm.
need JSON. You need Postman. There's a lot of things there, right? And even as fun and as cool as it is, there's a huge barrier to entry for someone
Agreed.
that doesn't know coding. I think the opportunity with MCP is that it's going to democratize information to a degree that anyone can just ask the question in natural language.
Okay.
Now, yes, developers are going to have to make these MCPs
Yeah.
to abstract their APIs, but imagine booking a flight. Like
Mhm.
today, everything is driven through the World Wide Web and a GUI, and you click here and you click there, and you this menu and that menu and this calendar. And What if I just could say, I want to book a flight Friday to Cuba for less than $1,000, enter, right?
I
Now
love
that I think is the promise of MCPs, is that one, it's a protocol, and we've seen SMTP with email, HTTP with the World Wide Web, right? There are some protocols that now maybe MCP turns out to be just another protocol and it doesn't explode like those. However,
it.
the fact that in just a few months, in 3 months, it's turned the world on its head, right? Like you cannot escape the news of MCP, or every day there seems to be some new version or some new company saying, here's our MCP, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I love the idea of vibe coding. I want barriers to come down, right?
Same.
So if people have
Absolutely.
this wonderful idea in their head, but they don't know the syntactical way to express it in code,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it's a bad idea,
No,
right?
let me just insert real quick my career. Like I work a full-time job. Okay. I even teach part-time. I don't have the cycles to do a full rebuild. So the idea of vibe coding, before that was even a thing, you and I have been working with the bots. I've been totally vibe code. I didn't even know what that was.
I
And I'm
know, I
cranking out,
know.
but what's great about what you're saying is I'm cranking out tools nobody's seen. It addresses a singular problem on a network just for this problem. And I banged it out in 30 minutes and I got it, like all of it. So vibe coding for a working professional, right, who
Yeah,
needs to quickly answer a question is going to be a thing, right?
yeah,
You now coming into this mix and being the voice of MCP is really helping me frame up. There's going to be, and I'm just this analysis, I'm just this watcher. Remember where I'm going to pull the watcher again. I'm looking at this as everybody's like in the maze, but I'm looking above the maze. And I'm saying what MCP is doing in AI, if I understand what you're saying, is it's flattening the one percenters. You know the bell curve, and then there's these like outliers in your statistics
yeah,
class. Well, what it's going to do is all those one percenters getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for a corporation. It's going to flatten and distribute. It's going to bring down the requirements. All this lengthy job description is going to be gobbledygook because everybody know if you put in the job description, do you know how to vibe code? Do you want to do MCP? You're in.
right, right. I know I get a lot of John, what about the juniors? Right? If we have a whole generation of juniors go away, and when the seniors retire, what's going to happen? I think we're looking at it all wrong. I think the paradigm of junior, senior, whatever is almost meaningless.
I totally 100, and that's what I'm trying
Right?
to do. I'm trying to implement a first loop, second loop. Don't look at senior, junior. You're swapping roles depending on your function. Because honestly, if you and I were on the same team, and this really happened to me in charter communications, there were only 3 people. But you have 27 years, I have 27 years, and somebody else had 27 years. And we defined the trifecta. I call it the trifecta. And between 50 years of experience, only these 3 people rolled out this multi-million-dollar thing with no director. See, it's revolutionizing corporations. And the middle
Right.
managers are realizing, oh, shoot, Matt and John can eat all our jobs immediately. The DevSecOps team now of 3 people went down to one. DevSecOps teams of 9 people went down to 4 or 3. And you're going to crank out more stuff with no director overhead. And I kind of feel that's what's happening. There's these seismic shifts going on, but the work is still there. And I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
and I are kind of picking up, but we're doing it because we're passionate about it. We're
Right.
just going where it leads us, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else is just trying to like get their footing. I, I don't know. What do you think of that?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think you nailed it. I mean, I used to, prior to this era of AI, like you said, I'm a working professional. I have a wife, I've got dogs, I've got other things, other interests. Um, okay, I'm going to make this new mind map code that's going to do whatever. Okay, it looks like I've got 10 hours on the weekend. It looks like Thursday night's free. It looks like maybe a little bit of time Monday if I get up early. Like squeezing every hour, and then it takes 3 weeks to make some project. At week 3, you realize that some logic in week 1 was wrong and that you've got to redesign it. Like this whole thing has been compressed into from hours to minutes and from minutes to seconds. Troubleshooting, I don't know. I like to take a whole function and go, this doesn't work, give me a new function. I'm not
Well,
troubleshooting. I'm not sending it errors and, could you help me fix this and fix that? I'm going, look, wholesale replace this function because it's not working, right?
yeah. No, I agree with you on that. And when you're talking about troubleshooting, that is my bag. Like that is my thing. But I realized maybe it's just the way I'm wired. I look at people and then I look at their logic. I line it up with actual different logics, systems, theories. I have the book right here. Not an endorsement, but I mean, this is my little black book. It's called the Decision Book. It's got 50 diagrams, and I integrated that into my troubleshooting. That's a
Cool.
non sequitur, but I'm just saying, this is what I'm telling you. We are at that influx point where a person's going to have to be okay to get up in the morning one day, walk into work, and get thrown into a team to address this thing. And according to what you're saying and the trends that I'm seeing, you could use MCP to interface, and you will have a solution with very low barrier, very low threshold, but it's the experience. You and I have the experience. We can guide how that looks. And I'll just give you one thing that I'll share with you. I didn't mean to kind of, I just tried something in education where, somebody asked a question and said, "Hey, I don't even know what a Docker is." Okay. I'm like, "Oh, okay. That kind of lines up with what I'm talking about." I was talking about full stack. Okay. We're talking about full stack development. So I immediately interacted with the bot and I have my own professional copy. And I'm like, "Hey, student is asking me about," and this is kind of the prototyping of MCP, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I need you to come up with a design where we're going to want to do some cold storage in an S3 bucket. And then we're going to want to do some like some streaming too. What is the most minimum build in a Docker?" And it just started cranking stuff out. Now, my experience after looking at the response is I'm actually getting input from the students. I'm like, "Does this look right to you?" And they were like, no, let's try this and this and this." And they became part of the solution. In an hour, we had a
An
solution
MVP. Yeah.
which would, facilitate their full stack.
Yeah.
And it was done in class, in real time. It was not planned. And at the end of it, I asked the student, "What did you think of the lesson?" He's like, "I really loved what you went in on this and on this and this, but I really loved what we took away." And I said, "In the real world, that's a tangible.
Yeah.
That would have taken a week.
Oh,
Okay?
absolutely.
That would have taken a week."
Yeah. It's absolutely remarkable. And there's real, so especially for your students, right? Like, there's an RFC from the IETF MCP, and you kind of go, well, what would that be? Like, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So you plug this into VS Code, and you have an empty file, and you say, I would like you to help me develop a diff serve quality of service configuration for a Cisco IOS XE router. It's got these four interfaces. Please use RFC 4954 as your guiding principle for these configs.
Yeah.
It literally writes the config based on the actual standards behind the MCP. Now, that's a 3-week exercise in production, actually, like reading the RFC, understanding your 12 queues and configuring your router for those 12 queues and buffers and all that. Like, quality of service is not for the light of heart. And suddenly it's done in 45 seconds based
Yeah.
on the RFC standard, right?
Mhm.
It's an entirely whole new world. Now, I think that Vibe coding will extend to Vibe operating, Vibe ops. How's the health of this? How are my drop packets there? Just asking questions, right? This
Yeah.
idea of memorizing show commands and memorizing output and memorizing, I don't know. I don't know how much
I
longer that's.
I was actually thinking of doing a side podcast on just looking at job descriptions and how outdated they are. Where
Yeah,
you and I could actually, well, not that we could do this later, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you could go in on a given day, feature something where you're like, you got to be technical in this and this and this and this and this. No, that's going to the bot, but you do need experience in understanding these core concepts. And the
right,
interview is about the experience of the concepts. Right?
right,
And if you
right.
don't, and this is the thing I'm trying to say, if you're not a Gen Xer, You haven't been in the business for 27 years. That's where my sandboxes go in. Like, let me look at your sandbox. Where is it? Let me dig in. Let me see what you know.
Yeah,
Kind of ruminate. Like the interview has got to change.
yeah.
I totally agree with you. I love
I've seen some recent discussion about this, whether or not AI should be allowed in the room during these interviews, and whether or not candidates
I didn't think of that.
should
Yeah,
be armed with AI to answer technical questions in an interview. I mean, I would be okay with that, but I think that the questions are going to have to change, or the evaluation of the candidate is now going to be have to be how creative are they? What kind of prompt engineering are they capable of? Are they able to extract the right information out of an AI? There's a whole new criteria that we're going to be evaluated on, and I don't see that as a problem, right? I mean, how good are they with this new tool known as AI? Because we're going to expect you to use AI. The other thing I want your students to pay attention to, or anyone watching this, a few pebbles turn into bigger and bigger rocks, and then it becomes an avalanche, right? We've
true.
already seen a handful of CEO and leaked memos. And what do those leaked memos say? We're not hiring anybody unless you can prove that you can't solve that problem with AI. I've seen that from 3 or 4 large Duolingo, Shopify.
Yeah.
There's a few other companies where they're saying you have to use AI to solve problems. And one of them in particular mentioned something that the time to be skeptical is over. And I sort of agree with that. I don't think that, skepticism does not equal expertise. Oh, artificial intelligence can hallucinate. You're not telling me anything I don't know. Like that is not expertise.
Right.
Contribute to this conversation with code, with work, with ideas, with optimism, with positivity. There's enough negativity on LinkedIn. There's enough negativity and doom scrolling out there. We need to put forward, ways to get to a utopian outcome,
Mm.
because there's many ways that this could go. And I hope it doesn't concentrate wealth at the top. I
Hmm.
hope that AI actually leads to a more equal and thriving humankind.
I think
But that's yet to be seen, right?
I totally agree. And I think you're also addressing, and I love how sensitive you are of people and their fear of the change, right? Psychologically speaking, everyone rejects. That is a human thing that happens. We just have to weather that fear, right? I
Right,
mean,
right.
especially when people are searching for what AI is, quantifying AI. Talk to some people, and like you said, there's not enough positivity around this whole thing, and I kind of feel like this fear mongering is not necessarily substantiated. Yes, there's going to be a couple of bots that wig out, but I'm not downplaying it. I'm just saying that AI as a whole has so much utility, and you're looking at this very small thing.
Right,
I
right.
totally agree with you. Yeah.
There was a lumberjack who cut his leg off with a chainsaw. I still think chainsaws are a good invention and much better than the axe.
Uh, I
You know?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
Anyway,
okay. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I really want to keep it within a certain time frame. So I want to talk about some of the things that the students can look forward to from you. I do know that you wrote a book. Okay.
yes.
So what I'll do is if you send me the link, I want to make sure that that link is available for them to look up. And then also, I do want to insert some kind of a thing. I know you're going to be emceeing somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. So one, my first book is totally open source on github.com/automate your network.
Okay.
The book is called Automate Your Network, and it will get you going with Ansible and Cisco, and really good place to start. Totally free, totally free. I have a PyETS book. When you're ready to graduate from Ansible to Python, you could start doing testing with PyETS. And yes, next week I'll be an MC at ONUG in Dallas.
And
I'll be at Cisco Live, and I'll
what's
also
ONUG?
be doing a spot at Shark Fest.
Okay,
So I've got a big summer coming up.
you do. So ONUG is what?
It's in Dallas, the Operator Network Users Group,
Okay, and that's in Dallas, and then you're doing the Cisco.
Cisco Live,
It's always
and
huge.
then Shark Fest
Oh,
for
I went to a
Wireshark.
Shark Fest once. That was a blast. I did the one in 2015, which I'm
Cool.
telling if you have you been to one?
I've never been to one. No, I'm
Oh,
going to be speaking about talking to packets.
see, and you got to go on the stage, but I was with GNS3 and I was kind of in the crowd, just kind of like my favorite instructor is Hassan Bey. 100%. If you ever listen to that guy, you got to go up there and meet him. He's fantastic. Everyone's good. Laura Chappell and everybody, the whole group. So you're going to have a blast. I think you're going to love that.
I can't wait. Vince Cerf is doing the keynote. I know. I know.
What?
So I can actually say that I shared a stage with him.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Super
So
cool.
Matt, let's do this again. Like, because things move so fast. There's going to be more to talk about in a month. You know.
Want to do this like a month and then you could like bring back to everybody what happened at those gatherings?
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
I love it. I love it. Okay, then it's a date.
All right, Matt.
All
Best
right.
of
Well,
luck, eh? And thank you so much for having me.
oh, it was so fun, and I kind of knew who you were just by the way you write. You write with a passion and a fury, and I just love that about you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to see you.
All right. See you
Take
around.
care.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.